start our lecture or discussion. It's almost 7 here in Sri Lanka. Evening time, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Over there, maybe 8:30 or 8.
It's 8:30.
8:30. Yeah. So let's move on with our discussion lecture. So this is going to be our third discussion. We have been discussing especially history of Buddhism in Asian countries. This is going to be a part of them, third discussion. We have already finished 2 topics in terms of Buddhist history in Asian countries. Origin, development, and also in brief practices and these things, but I'm not going to talk that much. I did not talk, and I'm not going to talk in this lecture too on about practices and other cultural things, because we will be discussing those things in the future. So right now, what I am doing, I'm giving a brief overview in terms of history of Buddhism in each geographical zones. Actually, in each country has its own history and cultural heritage, but we do not have time to go through each country. This is a broad. I'm giving a broad picture, a summary. That is what I want to emphasize at the beginning of this lecture too, depending on our time. So our next discussion, as you know, it's about Central and East Asian Buddhism, Central and East Asian Buddhism countries. Maybe you know majority they are, I mean, Buddhist in this geographical zone in East Asian countries, in East Asia. In Central Asia, actually, when we talk about Central Asia, those countries, Buddhism was there in the past, not at present. At present, Buddhists are minorities in these countries. So let me show the map, because it's important to recognize the geographical zone that we are going to talk today. You are familiar with this map. I saw you guys several times. So, you know, you're familiar with Asian geographical zone, Asia, this area. Then I saw this map too, Asian countries. Then now we have finished these 2 geographical zones, South India, Southern India, not Southern India, actually South Asia, sorry, South Asia, South Asian countries. And then we talk about Southeast Asian countries, basically in, as you know, as we discussed, basically in these geographical zones, Theravada tradition has rooted and well established for 2,300 years or for 2,600 years when you talk about its origin. South Asia and Southeast Asia, we finished yesterday. Then we are coming to next part of parts of Asia, Asian countries. You see here, East Asian country, these sides, and here, Central Asia, Central Asian countries. That is what we are going to focus today. So here you can see a line. It's clear. It's clear. When we talk about Central Asian countries, those are the countries which we found through ancient Silk Road. That's this is the one, this route. And then Eastern countries, Eastern Buddhist countries mean this side. So Silk Road, that's the network of trade routes in the past for a long time. Maybe according to my remembrance, from the 3rd century, 2nd century BCE, more than 2,000 years. This was the network of trade routes that link east and west, because business people, they travel through these Silk Road. Asian people went through west, and Western people came through these routes. Like, you know, in the east, Eastern people produce tea and some spicy things, cinnamon, and Chinese people produce porcelain and those kinds of things, and even silk. In Chinese business people, merchants, they travel, they brought these things through this Silk Road, and Western people brought other things, horses and honey and a lot of things from the West until 18th century or something like that. This had happened in the past. The important thing, this Silk Road is important in terms of Buddhism. That is what we are going to talk in details. Actually, maybe you have heard Buddhism, one of the ways in which Buddhism spread or expanded in the world through businesses or business people, traders. maybe you have heard Professor Lancaster. He's a great scholar. He's lecturing, I don't know at this time, in America at the University of the West too. He had done a lot of studies on these, especially sea routes and trade routes through which how Buddhism expanded through in the world. It's same at present too. It was same in the past too. That was one of important ways, mechanisms. So then Central Asian countries mean there were some countries around on these silk routes. Then when merchants travel from India, then from China, they have been resided here, and there were countries that especially Buddhist missionaries went through this Silk Road to China, and as we will be discussing, Buddhism went to most of East Asian countries from China. Then, first of all, from India to China, then Buddhist missionaries, Buddhists went through these silk routes to China. There are desert. One of them is it's called Taklamakan. I'll show you guys. This is much clear picture. Silk Road, Europe. This is the desert. India here, and you see here Taklamakan desert. Then there were two silk routes, which is called Southern Silk Road and Northern Silk Roads. Two silk roads. Then you can see here through this silk route, there are countries here. From this side, you see countries: Samarkand and Kashgar, Kucha, Turfan, Hami, and so on countries. Almost every countries in the past, not at present, in the past, they were Buddhist countries. Buddhism flourished, well established in these geographical areas in the past. This is the Northern Silk Road, and this is the Southern Khotan. It was a very famous, popular Buddhist country, in which archaeologists have found a lot of archaeological monument in terms of Buddhist manuscripts, Buddhist temples, inscriptions, a lot. They are very important in terms of when we want to prove some Buddhist facts in terms of Buddhist history. Khotan, then Southern and Northern, in Southern and Northern, in terms of Southern and Northern Silk routes, there are a lot of countries in the past. Then people travel through these Silk Route, China. Then almost basically early Buddhist tradition, early Buddhist Nikayas. I talked in my last lecture what are the early Buddhist Nikayas before emergence of the Mahayana. There were early sects, schools of Buddhism. Basically, as scholars say, they arose after the Second Buddhist Council, as I explained last time. 1806. From these sects or schools, many Buddhist schools, especially the schools which are familiar with Mahayana Buddhism and even Theravada, had introduced to these Central Asian countries. According to archaeological evidence, but because nowadays at present there is no Buddhism in these countries, in this area, but now names are different. There are minorities, Buddhists are minorities in these areas. Buddhism is not a major religion in this geographical zone anymore. But maybe you have heard about Afghanistan. There are wonderful Buddhist statues and stupas, Buddhist monuments that provide evidence about Buddhist history. Here again, you see here how Buddhist traditions has located in terms of geographical zones. 3 colors: Theravada, and then Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism, third Buddhist tradition, and Mahayana. But as you know, in each geographical zone, basically these kinds of Buddhism, maybe Mahayana, maybe Theravada, maybe Vajrayana, have well established and rooted. But though they are well established, in other geographical zones too, there are people practice 3 traditions. For example, in Vietnam, we find all Buddhist traditions, practitioners of all Buddhist traditions. It's same in China too. So then we were talking about Central Asian countries. I just put a few names of Central Asian countries like Khotan, Kucha, Turfan, more than those names. When we talk about East Asian Buddhist countries, China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Tibet, Mongolia, and so on, some other countries too. What you see right now, these are the ruins which we find in Central Asian countries. A huge Buddha images. Maybe in 10 to 15 years, Islam extremists, they destroy this huge Buddha image. It's World Heritage, but they are extremists. They destroy this huge Buddha image, one of the largest Buddha image in the world, and it's in Afghanistan. It's in Afghanistan or Central Asia. So it proves how Buddhism was flourished there, developed there through in Central Asian countries through Silk Road. Standing Buddha image. Now, actually, this picture is an old picture. Nowadays, at present, we cannot see this image because already destroyed. The largest Buddha images in the world, standing Buddha images and seated Buddha images we find in Afghanistan. A lot of Western archaeologists were working with these archaeological monuments in the past. They found, as a result of excavation, they found some Buddha images, Buddhist heritages in the earth. Still, we has to investigate a lot in terms of Buddhist history in these geographical zones. But unfortunately, archaeologists, historians, they cannot continue with their archaeological investigation because of extremists. But the lot of Buddhist history and evidence are in the earth. When they one day, when we find the evidence, Buddhist history will be changed. Another picture, seated Buddha images, historical, and paintings, which we find in Central Asian Buddhist heritage. There were many countries, there were many Buddhist countries in the past in this geographical zone, but Buddhism had already declined in this geographical zone. So let's talk about the other part, next part, East Asian countries. We just, I just gave you a brief introduction of Central Asian countries. If you are interested to read on archaeological or scholars investigation research, there are a lot of books which have published in East and West in terms of Central Asian archaeological monument investigation. East Asian countries, according to scholars, Buddhism, maybe Buddhism had introduced to China in 2nd century BCE or maybe 3rd century BCE as a result of Emperor Asoka's missionary services. But the exact time in which Buddhism introduced to China in the 1st century CE, but scholars talk about early introduction before that. Then Buddhism, as you know, Buddhism emerged in the 6th century BCE. Then this is this is 1st century CE. After 500 years of after 500 years of after 500 years, Buddhism had arrived in China, introduced to China through Silk Road, as I told you. Then kinds of Buddhist schools, basically Mahayana Buddhism. It means in the 1st century CE, as you know, Mahayana tradition had developed, and it was not just one tradition. In Mahayana tradition, we find a lot of Nikayas and schools too. Then Mahayana monks from India traveled through Silk Road to China and introduced Buddhism. This is how East Asian Buddhism began. East Asian Buddhism began. You need any clarification, or do you have any questions? If you have. So development of Mahayana Buddhism, you know, in terms of Mahayana practices, we will be talking these things. They develop the concept of Buddha and Bodhisattva and these kinds of things. Kinds of or forms of Mahayana Buddhist schools. For example, Chinese Madhyamika. Actually, this school, Madhyamika school, it belonged to Mahayana tradition, one of schools. It introduced, it arose in India. And then this is one of Buddhist schools, Mahayana schools, which introduced to China too. Madhyamika, Chinese Yogacara, Madhyamika and Yogacara, basically philosophical tradition in terms of Mahayana Buddhism. They have much deeper philosophical background in terms of sunyata, the concept of sunyata, yogacara in terms of vijnana. And this tradition had introduced to China, and even Pure Land Buddhist tradition. We find a lot of Buddhist traditions in China. Though the major tradition is Mahayana, we find many subsidiary branches, or what we call schools of Buddhism in China. They already arose in India, then they introduced to China. Shan tradition that has strong basis in terms of mind development. You know about Zen Buddhism in Japan, Zen. Then its Chinese name is Chan. So when it goes from India, in India it's called Dhyana Buddhism. Dhyana, maybe you are familiar with the word Dhyana. It means concentration, Sanskrit word concentration. From India, Venerable Bodhidharma, he brought Dhyana school, Dhyana Buddhism, to China. In China, it was named as Chan. From China, when it introduced to Japan, this tradition became in Japan Zen Buddhism. Then after what we can say, it was not that easy thing to establish Buddhism in a country like China. That is what I can say in brief, because in China, we find a lot of indigenous religions already, like Taoism, Confucianism, and those kinds of. Still, they are strong religion or philosophy, or people practice these kinds of religions in China. But Buddhist missionaries, they, as I already explained, they work harder. But like in Sri Lanka and Thailand, Burma, as we discussed yesterday, always it was not the case. I mean, the government or kings, they did not support Buddhism because it was a strange religion. They already had two religions like Confucianism and Taoism. There is debate that whether Confucianism is a religion or not, or Taoism, but they have religious practices. That is why it was not an easy task to establish Buddhism in China. Buddhism have faced a lot of challenges. Some kings, sometimes a lot of violations in terms of Buddhism, not always, sometimes. And as I explained you, in India, a lot of kings in Indian history, they help in many ways. That is how Buddhism survived and developed, well developed. I told you in Sri Lanka what happened in the past, government support. So, however, that is why it has taken a long time to establish Buddhism in China. Anyway, according to scholars, it had thoroughly acculturated in by the time of the Tang Dynasty. After a long time after the introduction of Buddhism, it took a long time to establish Buddhism in China. So a lot of Chinese monks had traveled, like Persians, and a lot of Chinese monks, they have traveled through this Silk Route. Actually, I'll show the map. Chinese monks, they are the people who travel through Buddhist world. It's a nice story. This is a nice story. They started their journey from China, and it's wonderful. Through Silk Route, and then they come to they came to India, and from India to Sri Lanka, then Sri Lanka to Southeast Asian Buddhist countries, and then they went back to maybe if they come from Northern Silk Road at first time, then they went through Southern Silk Road to China. Then they have recorded about Buddhist history, about on almost every Buddhist country, one of Chinese traveler, his name is Fashian. He traveled to almost every Buddhist countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Central Asia. He started his journey from China, and then he recorded in Chinese history of Buddhism what he saw, Buddhist, information how people practice Buddhism in each country, unique things. Several Chinese travelers, monks, venerables, they have produced these kinds of records in terms of Buddhist history. And not only that, they brought a lot of Buddhist texts they collected texts from Sri Lanka. For example, Fashian, he stayed in Sri Lanka for 2 years in the 5th century CE. While he was staying in Sri Lanka in the 5th century CE, he studied Sri Lankan Buddhism, Sri Lankan Buddhist tradition, Theravada, and he collected a lot of Buddhist texts from Sri Lanka and even Southeast Asian countries. When he returned to China through Silk Road, he brought a lot of Buddhist texts to China. That is how in Chinese Buddhism, what we see, they have a lot of collection of Buddhist texts that belong to different form of Buddhism, not only Mahayana Buddhism, but they belong to early Nikayas and Theravada, early Buddhism. They have a good collection of texts. Because of Chinese travelers, venerables, they collected these things. And even what happened when Indian venerables, Indian monks, Indian missionaries introduced Buddhism to China, Indian monks brought Buddhist texts. They were in Sanskrit language, and maybe Pali. Some texts, then it was not that easy thing to translate these Sanskrit things into Chinese language. In that case, Central Asian monks, some Central Asian monks, they helped, according to historical evidence, they had help. This is how, anyway, this is how Buddhism had well established after its introduction, after a few centuries of its introduction. In that case, Indian venerables, Central Asian venerables, because Buddhism was there in Central Asia at that time, and Chinese venerables, Chinese monks, missionaries, basically three kinds of missionaries: Indian, Central Asian, and Chinese venerables. They had worked harder because it's a different culture, it's a different country, not like South and Southeast Asian countries. And there were two religions. They had already established in China. That is why it was a big thing. Then I just put some the statues which represent Mahayana tradition, Chinese forms of Buddhism. I talk about a lot of books, collections they have collected. I think when compared with other Buddhist countries, they have the most. But unfortunately, as far as I know, they haven't translated into any other languages like English or any other language. A lot of texts still in Chinese. If you want to read, you have to learn Chinese. So, but as you know, in the case of Pali Canon, it has already translated for a long time ago. PTS, by PTS, Pali Text Society in England, and even Pali commentaries. A lot of Buddhist texts have translated, especially early texts have translated into languages like English and some other European languages. But we are unable to read Chinese text because we have to read, because it's about Buddhist history, how Buddhist teaching developed in the past. Because as I already explained, Chinese travelers, Chinese venerables, they collected from every geographical zones, from every Buddhist nikayas or schools. They just collected, they had, and then they translated into Chinese. We have to read them, and then new things will be revealed in terms of Buddhist history and Buddhist teachings. That is why this collection is important. So then, as you know, Mahayana Buddhism, basically Mahayana Buddhism is there in China, but we don't have to forget Theravada minorities are there too in China. Mahayana Buddhists are majority, Mahayana Buddhism, that's the main tradition in China. Then Chinese Buddhism, Buddhism introduced to Korea at first in the 4th century CE, and then from Korea to Japan. This is how Buddhism spread through East Asian countries, I don't have a map. Anyway, from China, then from China to Korea, Korea to Japan. Then Vietnam is here, but in the case of Vietnam, actually, as you see, it's closer to it's closer to Southeast Asian countries. That is why, according to scholars, Buddhism had already introduced early form of Buddhism, what's called Theravada. Theravada Buddhism had already introduced to Vietnam. That is why yellow color is, even though majority are Mahayana Buddhist in Vietnam, early form of Buddhism, Buddhism had already introduced to Vietnam by Theravada missionaries. Vietnam is a unique Buddhist country. That is what I want to emphasize you guys. What is it exists all kinds of Buddhist form of Buddhism, Mahayana, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana in one country. It's a unique Buddhist country. They got Theravada already. Then, because of Chinese influence, actually, China invaded Vietnam, and then because of Chinese power, political power, they introduced Mahayana Buddhism too. Then nowadays, at present, majority are Mahayana Buddhists, but they practice three traditions. In Taiwan is here. It's a Buddhist country. It's a small country like Sri Lanka. And this is how Buddhism spread to East Asian countries. Then you see a nice statue. Maybe it's famous in everywhere. Chinese statue, Bodhisattva. Look like Korean Sangha, or they are performing religious practices. As I was explaining, the Han dynasty, they are the people, they conquered the northern part of peninsula in the, I'm talking about Vietnam, how Buddhism went to Vietnam, Mahayana Buddhism. In the 2nd century, peninsula in the 2nd century BC, Buddhism was introduced roughly 2 centuries later. I already explained the story. It's meditation, Mahayana meditation practice. Let's talk about Tibetan Buddhism. Next, Tibetan Buddhism. As you know, it's very famous in the modern world. Vajrayana Buddhism or Tantric Buddhism, what we call. As I explained yesterday, this form of Buddhism emerged after 1,000 years of Buddha's passing away, as an offshoot or as a later development of Mahayana Buddhism. Because in terms of religious goals, there is no difference between, in terms of religious achievements, there is no difference, there are no differences between Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhist traditions. But they have developed different approaches. They have developed different approaches and ways to achieve enlightenment. Buddhism came to Tibet much later. I can just show you guys where Tibet is. Tibet is here. What I can say, this is just how I am thinking. Okay, this is not scholarly opinion. When when Buddhism declined in India, Theravada Buddhism rooted, well established in Sri Lanka. That is why in Theravada world, Sri Lanka recognized as a center for Theravada Buddhism. Religious relationship, everything among Theravada countries happen here, South and Southeast Asian countries. That is what we find in terms of Buddhist history. Sri Lanka had played Indian role actually, because Buddhism was not there in India when it disappeared from India. Then in terms of East Asian Buddhism, what I wanted to tell you guys, China played a big role. China, as you see now, from China it went to Korea, Japan, and Vietnam too. It seems to me that China was the center for Mahayana Buddhism, Mahayana form of Buddhism. It's my then Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana, these kinds of Buddhism is here, Mongolia. You see here too. It's in Europe, Kalmyki. Yeah, it's a Vajrayana Buddhist country. And Vajrayana Buddhism is here too, in South Asia too, in Bhutan and Nepal, the birthplace of the Buddha. But Vajrayana Buddhism developed and well established in this country. Maybe you are aware what's going on with between China and Tibet. Now Chinese people rule Tibet. You know the situation. I don't know. I do not want to explain on this. Anyway, this is my this is what I observe when we talk about Buddhist history. These three countries, Tibet, Sri Lanka, and China, had played significant roles in terms of preserving each tradition and developing each tradition and also propagating or spreading Buddhism. Those people, those Buddhists had done a lot of things. Three major Buddhist traditions in three different geographical zones. That is why scholars recognize this kind of Buddhism, this form of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, as Southern Buddhism. Majority are Theravada Buddhist. Then these kinds of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, as Eastern Buddhism. Then this Tibetan Buddhism as Northern Buddhism, in terms of geographical zones. Vajrayana Buddhists are there.
Which three countries? I was writing when you pointed.
This one, Korea. I did not hear clearly what you said.
What three countries were you pointing at? I was.
Sri Lanka in terms of Theravada.
Mm-hmm.
Then China in terms of Mahayana Buddhist tradition. Tibet in terms of Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Then I said another things, Northern Buddhism, Southern Buddhism, Eastern Buddhism, and Northern Buddhism. That's some of the scholars recognize. Any other questions or concern if you have?
Bhante?
Yeah.
On that map where you had a blue route and a red route, I missed what the difference and what that signified. You had one.
Sorry, I'm not getting what you're saying. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, you had a previous map that had routes.
Which one? Let me.
Okay.
You can select this one. This one.
No, it had a blue route and a red route. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is significance of that? What's the difference?
So I just found some maps in the internet. I just put some maps. It's about clarity, and I want you guys to understand well. That is why. Otherwise, I don't see that much differences. What I wanted to explain how Buddhism spread in geographical different geographical zone. That is what I wanted to show. Otherwise, maybe there are some differences, but it's about your understanding and clarity of my explanation. So, except this, this is the Silk Road. I think when I explain on this, have you participated? You know, you just joined?
No,
You
I've been
just
here.
joined?
No, I've been here.
Okay, so then I explained this is the Silk Road, these things. It was a network of roads, trade routes, through which people travel from east to west, west to east. They link through this Silk Road. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bhante, we're having a small discussion in the chat box. I'm thinking that the red lines are land routes and the blue lines are water routes. And
maybe yeah. Go on.
And those are the trade routes, yes?
These are actually yeah, you are correct. This
The blue
should be
is not the, yes.
yeah, sea routes.
And the blue is not the Silk Road.
No.
Yeah. Just parts
this
of
is the Silk Road. Yeah. Red one is the Silk Road. Red line. These are the sea route. I already told you about Professor Lancaster. Is an American professor. He teach at Berkeley in California. Is Buddhist studies professor. He had done a lot of research on these sea routes, how Buddhism went through sea routes, Indian Ocean. If you are aware on the politics and trades, at present too, there are big competition among countries, in terms of these sea routes. It's about political powers and business. It has to do with a lot, these sea routes. So these sea routes are very important at present too. But I was not talking that much on these sea routes, but that's one way through which Buddhism expanded. Because traders, business people, they are the kinds of people who spread Buddhism, because they brought Buddhism to country to country. So both routes, lands and sea, are important in terms of propagating Buddhism. Not only actually technically they are people use these routes for business purposes, but Buddhism also spread through them, those peoples. but the special things in terms of Silk Road, that is what you have to, I want to emphasize. There were so many states, countries through these Silk Roads. That is what I was discussing. When we talk about Central Asian Buddhism in the past, not at present, Buddhism was there. That is why I especially talk only this this road, because it's about Central Asian Buddhism. We find a lot of states in which Buddhism had flourished, developed kinds of forms of Buddhism in the past. So otherwise, both routes are important in terms of culture, business, religious propagation, for a lot of purposes. That is what I can say in brief. Is it clear for you?
Yes, thank you.
Bante,
Uh-huh.
you showed a picture with lots of ladies doing the sitting meditation. What country is that?
I can, you know, I took it from the internet. It should be Taiwan or Vietnam. I am just guessing. I have no idea. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you are talking about this picture. This one. These kinds of practices are going on in Mahayana form of Buddhism in China, Vietnam, and other East Asian Buddhist countries. This would be either, that is what I guess, this would be either Taiwan or Vietnam.
If you could zoom in on their name tags, you might be able to figure it out.
So, yeah.
What about the picture with the many monks sitting there meditate? What country is that?
It's look like Korea. This one,
Kor-
it's not meditating. I think it's look like they are chanting together, chanting.
In Korea?
Look like Korea. But anyway, in general, it's about Mahayana religious practice. Actually, if someone is interested to read more about these Silk Roads and how Buddhism spread through sea roads and Silk Road, you can find some information from Professor Lancaster's studies. He's one of my teachers, teachers when I was studying at University of the West. He's a great professor, scholar. He specialized on this subject, how Buddhism spread through sea routes and silk routes both. So you can find information in the internet too. So Lisa, you done with the questions?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other?
This
No.
is kind of a side question. The women who were meditating, they were dressed alike and they still had hair. Were these 10 precept nuns, or are these lay people?
Yeah.
Since Lisa went back to that, I thought I'd ask. You know,
So-
they don't look like they're wearing pink robes, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely, these are monks
other-
ordained. Yeah, no argument. No argument. Venerables, bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, but lay
Yeah.
people, lay community. You know, they follow kinds. What is called Bodhisattva path in Mahayana Buddhism. I am coming to this discussion. So in Mahayana tradition, in Mahayana form of Buddhism, everyone is on the same path. It doesn't matter you are a lay person or monastics. Everyone is trying to achieve Buddhahood. Everyone is considered as a person who is practice Bodhisattva path. So in this picture, it's a kind of event. Sometimes weekly basis, they come to temple and they practice these kinds of practices, meditation practices, religious practices. They wear kinds of robes, and definitely they are lay people. Yeah, kinds of practices. It happened in Theravada too. I couldn't put a picture, unfortunately. Once a month. In the past 4 times a month, they observe precepts. You know, lay people usually they practice 5 precepts day-to-day life. In certain days, like in Uposatha day, what we call once a month, maybe 4 times a month, they practice more than 5 precepts, maybe 8 precepts, maybe 10 precepts in Theravada tradition too, you know, depending on their time. This is the same kind of practice in Mahayana Buddhism, how lay people dedicate their, how lay people practice Buddhism. Not always in on special days, on special occasions, they do this. It happens in every tradition, every Buddhist tradition. You got, you need any more clarification? Do you need? I'm not hearing what you are saying. Maybe you
No,
turn
thank
off
you.
your.
Thank you. It's we don't see photos like this usually.
Yeah.
So I was just
Now
curious.
you can try to find a lot of nice pictures are there in the internet in terms of Buddhism.
In the West, we're not accustomed to seeing hundreds of monastics in one place at one time. So, you know,
Yeah,
if we see 15 monastics.
Mhm.
That's a lot for us.
Yeah, because in the West, no more, monastics or lay peoples, peoples are, limited. But when I was in California, there was some program in Taiwanese Buddhist centers and Thailand Buddhist temples. There is a famous Buddhist meditation center in California, which is called Dhammacaya. It's very famous for meditation. Annually, especially for Vesak Day, a lot of monks gathered, representing Theravada especially, and Mahayana too. And I saw you guys a picture yesterday. Maybe I can just so.
Of course, this photo of the women all lined up with the candles in between them. It's a beautiful photo. You know, it's a beautiful moment.
Yesterday I saw this one. You remember Thai tradition, Theravada tradition?
There are at least 800 monks there.
Yeah, a lot.
I counted like 20 rows and 40 columns. It's just amazing.
Then there was another. Another one. This kind of program is conducted in the USA too, as I told you, in Thai meditation centers. There are few in the USA. I'm talking about in California. Annually, they conduct these kinds of meditation program. A lot of monks gathered, even though it is they try to invite almost every monks who are living in the USA to participate in this annual program. It's colorful and it's immersive, well organized ceremony.
And what are the stemmed glasses for? Is this water?
No, basically it's about candle, light. They use candles because the light it has a lot of symbolical values in terms of Buddhism. In Pali, we say aloka, light. So always Buddha advise people to find aloka or light. They have to come out of dark and to see light.
Would we like to take a break for 10 minutes?
Yeah, let's take, I'm going to then see you in 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.